We're a group of GenXers who became aware of our neurodiversity later in life. Join us as we share stories, interesting topics, and talk to special guests. Welcome to Season 2 of This Is How My Brain Works. All right, welcome to another episode of This Is How My Brain Works. Folks, as we've talked about, as we've mentioned, we usually have a little bit of some banter, some chit-chat, some catching up before we start recording, just to kind of get the vibe, the cohesion, the synergy. And on several occasions, there has been ranging from a short to a long discussion about this podcast that's out right now called the Telepathy tapes. And it's extremely fascinating. Everybody that you see here, Krista, Gano, Jason Rudofsky, Sarah Hines, has listened to these. I have not. I have yet to listen to them. I have seen like the kind of an overview or a teaser or something, but essentially, I'm just reading from the website here, and then we'll launch into it. In a world that often dismisses the extraordinary as mere fantasy, the Telepathy tapes dares to explore the profound abilities of non-speakers with autism, individuals who have long been misunderstood and underestimated. These silent communicators possess gifts that defy conventional understanding, from telepathy to otherworldly perceptions, challenging the limits of what we believe to be real. For years, parents and teachers have quietly witnessed these remarkable abilities, knowing that the time to share their truth would eventually come. But now, as the evidence mounts, the time has come to reveal what has been hidden in plain sight. Pretty fascinating.
It's extraordinarily fascinating.
And that's our show. Thanks for listening.
It's extraordinary. Listen, this is as someone with autism in the family tree. Although maybe unfortunately for those around us, we don't have the nonverbal kind. We have the incredibly verbal. We have the verbose kind. Quite the opposite. This podcast for me was emotional, extraordinary,
mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing. As someone who really does believe that there are things in this world that we don't understand and that science isn't always going to be able to explain in a way that makes, I don't know, neurotypicals comfortable, I guess. It was a lot of validation. It's really an extraordinary podcast, and it's Kai Dickens. I can't remember if you said that, Michael, but
no.
It's an extraordinary podcast that has a website now. They're doing season 2, and she is turning it into a documentary, which I just cannot wait, because obviously she's a documentarian, and so the podcast was something I think that she did until she could raise the money to get the footage really put together. So, but she's been filming the whole thing, so it's really cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
It's the part that gets me is the 100%. And that's the accuracy rate.
Didn't miss one.
Yeah, the nonverbal autistic kids with all kinds of guards in place, so that, and not literal guards, but even literal people, safeguards in place so that they could not cheat. They could not there weren't computer monitors, TVs, because of reflections. The primary caregiver, who is the one given. So basically what they did is they took these nonverbal autistic kids and their primary caregiver, and they had them perform repeated experiments where the primary caregiver was given a randomized number through a system that primary caregiver did not know about, had never seen before, was new to them. So they couldn't hack that system. And the autistic kid was put in a room where they could not possibly have any inputs from the outside world. And 100% accuracy. They generate a number 4 digits long for the primary caregiver. The trick that the primary caregiver did that I thought was interesting and kind of speaks to me in the meditation that we've talked about before is that it works by the primary caregiver emptying their head and really focusing on that 4-digit number, or They also did like color generators and other types of things, but you really have to still everything else as the person who's
Sometimes,
sending.
Sarah, but not
Uh-huh.
others. I mean, they were talking about some of these kids, like they couldn't get gifts for these kids. The kids knew what they were. They could, the moment they were thinking, they were so connected. The kids knew that if they watched a movie, essentially the kid watched the movie from upstairs if they were tapped in. Like it went further than just the, I mean, that was the testing for
Oh
sure.
yeah, yeah. I'm just showing the part that
Yeah.
made
So
my political
explain what the
skeptical brain
test
stop.
was. Explain what the test was a little bit. Like,
It's
what were they getting
telepathy.
100% on?
It's
100%. So the
telepathy.
person, the primary
I'd
care.
go into another room and I'd say, Michael, write down a number, 4-digit number, and I'd leave the room and I'd come back and I'd say it's 6718. And you're like, exactly, it's 6718. I'd leave the room, pick an animal. I'd come in, I'd say you picked a buffalo.
So it's
Buffalo.
telepathy.
And
I
it
mean,
would over and over and over again. And these kids are like, I mean, there were a lot of instances. A teacher in the UK knew that she had a child who was special and couldn't tap into it, at the onset, but learned and gave told a story about a child that was standing behind her. She could feel the child there. She did not look around at all. She did not look at the child. She felt his presence behind him. She then heard him in her head say something. He said something to her. She received it, turned around and answered that question. She's like, I don't know, but he put this in my head. I turn around and I said, Andrew, we can't do that right now because, and he didn't say a word. He didn't say a word.
When you guys are saying tap into, so this is something that takes energy or an effort or a focus, so they can choose to turn this on or off.
well, yeah, I think so. I mean,
When you
I think it depends on the kid, the person, like, and the amount of practice that you're just like anything else. But because yeah, the parents have, of kids like this, when they find out that the kids are really like hearing every thought. Like there was one parent who asked for forgiveness for having thoughts that they were frustrated with their kid, and
Oh
and then they
no.
found out,
Oh,
they realized later that their kid heard all that in their
oh my
heads.
God.
And so they had to sort of, once they realized the telepathy piece, they had to go back and say, I'm so sorry. And of course these kids are, I mean, they're like wired for difference, right? They're like so much grace, so much love. They're just one step closer, I think, to, God in the veil than maybe 10 steps closer than the rest of us in many ways. But and then that's the second piece of that puzzle. So then they find out that these kids go to this place called the Hill, and it is a mental place they go to. So because they're not, so they're nonverbal, so they're in their rooms, nobody is hearing what they're doing, but they are mentally going to a place in their brains, I don't know, where they're connecting with others, and they're also connecting with masters. Like, they'll find out that kids know, and young adults know languages that they've never been taught. They know subjects they've never been taught, and it's because they're attending class on the Hill. And there are people who are friends who meet each other. They check in on each other, like from different states, different countries, different, things. And in their opinion, the fact that we speak with our mouths seems like really archaic and kind of dumb. Like it seems like a lot of
Inefficient.
energy and inefficient. Like,
Wow.
and that
Words
they
are approximations of ideas. Why bother with words when you can simply think the idea?
right. And
Well,
they connect this way. So they'll go to school and then they can't wait to get home. Where it may or may not be
So
supportive at school,
it's
and they can't
shut
wait to get
off.
home to meet on the Hill.
So, but I mean, they've couldn't they be on the hill all the time? So do they shut it off to focus on what they're doing in school?
They
Then when
have
they
to,
get home,
yeah, they go to the Hill.
Oh,
They have
is
to
this a
go to a
physical?
quiet room.
No, it's
Depends
not
on the
physical.
kid.
No, they usually have to no, they usually have, but they have to undo a lot of the stimulus. So
Oh,
like one of them says that when he's on the hill,
Covers
he's
with
got
a
like four
pillow.
pillows over his head.
Yeah.
so it's like a frequency that they need to be able to tune into, and if
Yeah.
they're in school, there's too much going on for them to really
So
tune
they
in.
come
Yeah.
home, they go upstairs to their room, they put a pillow over their head, and they're in the hill. They're at the hill with other
Kid.
humans
Yeah, humans. Yeah.
discussing things on
Actually, we
this hill.
don't know if it's just humans.
I don't know what it
True.
is.
We don't know. Because
Like the
there's a lot
Matrix
of them who
and
have
Close
talked about that
Encounters.
they've met people there who are spiritual in nature, dead
Yeah.
masters.
But what I found interesting is mother, father. In the very beginning, there was a child, I think, was she from Mexico or
One of the
the mother
kids
didn't
was.
speak English.
Yeah.
The mother didn't speak English, but didn't have the same relationship with the father as the child did with the mother. The father couldn't have the same interactions with the child, but the child knew exactly what the mother was thinking all the time. Didn't
Mhm.
matter. Knew exactly what the child knew exactly what they have this relationship, and the mother's like, I can tap into it, I can understand, but another family member may not be able to. And they were talking about a child in the womb having recollections of what it was like to be in the womb. I mean,
And then I think when you even go the step further, and this is worldwide. So like we're talking with a kid from, if where the family's from India, a kid where the family's from Mexico, the UK, several different states in the United States. So where this is not isolated. It's not we had 5 kids in Spokane, Washington, and now we're like deciding that this is the truth. Like this is all over that these kids do this. And what is so interesting to me too is when you hit that second layer of the cover up of making it uncool to talk about these things. And they talk about the layer of materialism, which I think in this country means that, you're a material girl and you like your things. But in that world, it's that through, I don't know, probably since the old philosophers, we have been brought up under this idea that if you can't see it, test it, touch it, it's not scientific and therefore it doesn't exist. And you're a quack if you try to talk about it and you shouldn't do it and you'll lose your license. And so, as we probably raise in consciousness in general, we realize there's a lot more to this world than what is material in that function. And this is a proof of that. And it's been covered up. People have lost their licenses. People have been told they're crazy. Kids have been taken away. I mean, like for many decades, this has been, it's been a lot. And so for them to come out and say, we're going to claim this, we're going to do this now is so important. And the thing is some of these kids have extraordinary gifts. Like one kid is well known that he can diagnose the undiagnosable. Like this, I think it's a boy. I don't know if that's right. I think so. But it's like doctors are like, we just don't know what's wrong with this person. And this kid spends very little time and has diagnosed people properly without x-rays, without all of this other stuff. And it's been accurate, and he has healed, he hasn't healed people, but because of the diagnosis, people have been able to be healed. But you have to be willing. This is why neurodivergent people are so effing important, because you have to be willing to see beyond the box. And everything was awful before it was accepted. Everything. Every invention was stupid before it was accepted. Every person who tried to forward our culture or our science was considered crazy before they weren't. So it takes, I think, for us as we examine this type of stuff, and hopefully are supportive I think we are, for other neurodivergent souls. This idea that we should not be listened to because our brains think different. It's quite the opposite, right? It is quite the opposite.
You know, what other part was interesting? You talk about the medical field. I don't know, it was early on again in the episodes, probably the third episode, fourth episode. There's a boyfriend girlfriend who spend time together in the house, but not in the same room. Not in the same room. One's downstairs, like the daughter. Not the daughter. The girl is downstairs at the boyfriend's house. The boyfriend's upstairs. They both go to the hill.
Hey.
They both know what they're thinking at all times. They're not in the same room. The father of the girl is he's like an internist, or he's a doctor, and he can't really, and he doesn't have the relationship that the mother does. Or was it the son? No, I think it's the girl. It's the girl whose dad is a doctor. He's like, I can't. There's nothing in the medical field that gives me the tools to diagnose what's going on. There's no rational information that I can lean on to explain what's going on with my daughter. It was a brand new. It's only been like a year with the daughter, but the boyfriend has been sort of established in the telepathy realm for a while. But they're boyfriend girlfriend. They don't talk. They know everything that they're thinking at all times, and they can talk about it. I mean, they have computers, and they'll type it out or.
Mm-hmm. So Jason, I actually want to take that and toggle into the real issue, because the next logical question, right, is like, well, how do we know that they are saying or talking about whether, right? And so they do it through spelling, which we can have a different conversation if we want to about that whole thing. There's documentaries about it, the whole like teaching these kids to spell and everything. But what I'd rather focus on is the idea that when you decide that these kids are not capable of anything, and then you lock them in sort of like daycare style classrooms for their whole lives, and really they are capable of things like diagnosing illness, or there was one of these autistic kids who helped them crack the code to an ancient language when they found some artifacts in like Egypt or something. Like you deny them education when you decide that we don't even try to give them a mode of communication. And my degree is in sign language interpreting. I don't do anything with it, but that is so much also what happens to deaf kids. It's like this assumption that if you're deaf, you also are not intelligent. So who cares? Like, who cares how they teach them how to communicate? And so much of that, what you see, whether it be autistic kids who are nonverbal or deaf kids or whatever, when they start to get mad and they act out physically, it's because they haven't been given a mode to be able to express their effing feelings. And that to me is, I have a lot of anger, and I've had it for righteous anger, I believe, for years, around not just teaching people how to communicate in a way that works for them so that we can unlock their needs and desires and potential. Jason, because I know you have very personal feelings around that.
I mean, you said it best. If you've never, I mean, and we've talked about it, if you've never, encountered someone who is deaf, I mean, immediately there is the belief that that person is missing a lot, and they don't have the capability, just because they're deaf, they don't have the capability of prospering in this world.
It's ridiculous.
Because of how, and deafness is, it's just, for those who aren't deaf and can hear, you don't know what it's like to be silent. And the mode of communication, whether it's sign language, cued speech, typing, whatever it is, people freak out. People freak out. They don't know how to communicate with someone at all. Oh, they're deaf. They have no ability. How am I going to communicate with this person? How is this going to happen? And consequently, the person who's deaf is like, look, I'm deaf, but I got all the skills.
That's
I mean,
exactly what these kids are like.
right, exactly. It's the same. They put them in a cage. They just like, we don't know how to deal
Well,
with
it's
this.
like when you talk about neurodiverse and neurotypical, or like a neurodiverse person, someone trying to fit into a neurotypical world, and some of that is just like, I think it's for someone who would be neurotypical, it takes effort to understand and maybe communicate a little differently. It's not as easy. Well, this is too hard. Let me just find someone who hears, or let me just find someone who communicates verbally. That's just easier for me. And so it's like there's like this inconvenience, or not as easy, and then there's this uncomfortableness about something that's different. So then there's this, I'm uneasy, and I don't like this feeling that I'm having, and so I'd rather not try to
Well, and the other thing
interact or
is the
communicate.
person who has the disability then is forced to do everything in their power just to be able to communicate with everyone else when no one on the other side is doing anything. I mean, they're just not doing much to like
Yeah.
you were saying, Michael. It's a freak out. It's like, I don't know how I'm going to communicate with this person. I need to find someone who speaks. Maybe they can help. I don't know what it is, but there's so many modes of communication that it shouldn't be a roadblock to communicating,
What's
right?
fascinating here, another thing that came up for me was, now, and as I Google around, there are people that there are skeptics. There are people that say, well, these things are flawed, or if you look at the video of the thing, then blah 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 blah. They try to like tear the stuff down. But let's just consider this as what this is presenting, right? And um, isn't it interesting how we've had in so many of our episodes, we've talked about masking, and we've talked about um, shame, and trying not to come across in a certain way, and how much stress and anxiety that is. We're living in our heads, thinking through these things. We're battling these self-limited beliefs. We're battling narratives that aren't positive or confident, create confidence for ourselves. And so we have all this internal stuff, and then we try to communicate outwards. Look how complex that is, right? And there just seems to be this the pureness of this type of communication. And I think because they are able to access that in such a way, it leads to, as you said earlier, Krista, I think the compassion, or Sarah, that you would maybe have for a parent who's frustrated with their kid. They're like, yeah, all this is real. So they're like evolved in an emotional sense as well, as like, because they really are taking in all this stuff, and I think have a different perspective on things, and maybe they're able to communicate more purely, and it's just, oh, like, I can just be and communicate without this masking, and without this reframing, and without this posturing, and without this stuff. That's what's kind of
Well, I think there's
coming up.
two, we've always said it's sort of like our software is moving at a different speed than our hardware. And I think that is true of them, like two and threefold. Once you listen to this, it's like, I think there's this idea because maybe they look like, from our standpoint, that their body, I mean, there's so much, Michael. I hope you listen to it, because you find out that there's different ways that people are trying to align with them, to communicate with them. And one of the kids said, I just need my brain frequency to match my body frequency. And he realized that he's not, he said he was like, it's almost like he's like spinning just like outside of his body. And so when you see these kids who look awkward in their bodies or whatever, and you just assume that they're they don't have anything to offer, what a huge mistake, right? Like, it is an interesting thing, this idea of what happens when you and your body and the way you communicate does not necessarily match what is considered to be normal. And that I wish that the first question was, when that happened, was what does it look like to be in your world, and as opposed to, I don't like you in my world because you're just different, and I don't like it. We so quickly go to what is not possible as opposed to what is possible. And that, I have just a lot of fury around the idea that kids, there was one of the kids who he got his very first actual class where he got to participate as a student and use his brain as a senior in his spring term, which means he went through all of school knowing exactly what was going on with no one truly educating this kid. It's and that makes me incredibly angry. Because I think it's going to get worse. And I know we said we would not get political, but you already see with some of the stuff that's happening, talks of how anybody with a difference, a neurodivergence or a difference in a classroom is hampering others from learning. We're starting to hear that rhetoric, hampering others from learning because they have to learn differently than the rest of the group. So we're already starting to see that coming down now after so many steps forward with inclusion in ways, I know that's a bad word, I'm not supposed to say it, but I'm gonna, inclusions in ways that was not only good for the kid who was different, but also markedly important and good for the kids who are neurotypical.
Yes. 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 Oh my gosh. I know we said we
How
were going
about
to get.
how about the child who could recite every single number to whatever it was with pi?
Yeah.
And they said he didn't memorize numbers. He didn't memorize all the numbers. It was all colors. He had colors in his head that associated with numbers. And he just, what did it take him, they said 4 hours or something. He recited every single number without making one mistake. And in his brain, they were all colors, not numbers. And he associated every number with a color. And that's how he did it. But how?
That's not seeing God. I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Incredible. Like a 4-year-old that knew 7 languages, knew Japanese, Chinese, knew a little Hebrew, knew Italian, knew, you know what I mean?
Well, and here's the thing. I'm gonna just say again. I know we keep saying we're not gonna. It's not really political, but we know now that the CIA has been working with people who can see in the future, who can time walk, who can do these. We know for a fact. You can look it up. The CIA has been working with people who are psychic in nature, so the government believes these things are true. They've believed it for years. You can look it up. So for us to be under this
spent
idea,
our tax money on it.
yes, that's right. We spent a lot of effing tax money on it. So for us, the plebes out in the world, to be told that somehow it's not real, it's not true, your kids can't do it, your kids aren't right, your kid being neurodivergent is horrible, is a load of tripe in every way. In fact, they are now letting us know that the gifted test has often been an early test for them to give kids to see if they could be future people for these CIA programs. So that's the thing that I think is so maddening, is not only are we holding people down and putting our boots on their necks, but we know probably at some level that it's true. And we're not allowing it to come to light. Ooh, I'm on fire.
Yeah, you are. Girl.
Indignation.
They chose to admit that there are aliens before they
will admit that there's telepathy.
admit there's telepathy.
And guess how the aliens talk to us?
Right.
Telepathy. So everybody start practicing now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. That means we have to meditate, right?
I know, Sarah. Yes, Sarah.
How was your coffee this morning, Rudy?
Amazing. Why?
Did you
Did you
smell it?
did you do the sensory
Did you
No, I
exercise
just
with your
tasted it and it
coffee?
was like, that is so good. But I did take Liz's advice last week, I told you, and I went by myself because I
Yes.
was up in the mountain, and I did go to the hot springs.
This
And
is going to be a non sequitur because we are not going to probably do these in order. So
That's
now you
great.
have to explain it a little bit. So this is the week after Liz was the guest who helped them, not me yet, understand the importance of self-care, meditation, etc. And now Rudy has now tell the story.
well, and it does have to do with telepathy because I would like the ability to quiet my brain at some point, empty my brain of all the unnecessary garbage. I was able to do that momentarily when I was by myself. I was in a pool by myself. It was 109 degrees. It was awesome. Um, and I just tried to calm it all down. I tried to feel the energy through the tip of my toes all the way to the top of my head a few times.
Nice.
And it I, TikTok, I've seen some other things on TikTok and um just and with our brains, because I'll just use my brain as an example. It's constantly going. It's constantly good. There's things, whatever. I got to do the boom. What should I do now? Da da da. And I was able for a few moments to calm that down and try to get in tune with what's going on here, and tried to empty the brain because we've tried to do some telepathy here in the home. Like, oh, see if you can guess what I'm thinking. You know, um, but at that moment, I can't even shut my brain down to think of something. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm trying to learn how to shut it down, and to relieve myself of all those things. It's not easy. I wish I had a Sherpa every morning when I woke up and allowed me to, or guided me through, and I know there's a lot of things. She gave us some ideas on what meditation she follows. I know that, Sarah, I think you have a guided meditation on your phone. Um, but it kind of goes back to the telepathy idea of being so in tune up here and able to focus solely on one thing. That's something I got to practice. We talk about practicing telepathy and learning how to do that. The first thing I need to do is to take stock of what I have here, the entire body, but learn how to quiet the brain, really. And it's not that easy. But Liz was very helpful. Liz was very helpful last week in saying, you just need to take that moment. I do it every morning. I kind of take stock of myself, you know, um, just in tune with what's going on.
Well,
And it
yeah.
really propels you through
And
the
while
day.
we're plugging other guests, Dr. Lowell Whiteman also has a morning practice. It's almost like an affirmation that
Yes.
so that morning mindset is
Morning check-in.
check-in is very
And
effective.
I think is it time?
I've been doing it for a little while.
I knew
Trying to
I
be
knew
quiet.
So I want to play a game before we wrap up or as we wrap up. And it's a really simple game. I'm going to text I'm going to text something to Michael. And Michael, you're going to clear your mind. And Krista and Jason, you're going to try and think of what Michael is doing. But before we do all of this, I want to thank our listeners for listening and playing along with us. And maybe you guys can play this with your family at home too. And tell us in the comments how it turned out.
Wait, but first, what you text, are you texting an image, a number, a letter? What are you doing?
Okay, well, yeah. It is going to be a color and a thing.
Like an object? What is that? A thing? Like an animal? An object? You gotta narrow that shit down.
I already have.
You gotta do like
something came to me.
shape and color. You gotta do something.
Good, be quiet. I think that we've got this. You're overthinking. You're in your
Something came to
beta
me.
or theta.
No,
your
I'm doing
theta.
exactly what they even did in the telepathy
I know,
tape.
we're totally
They give you
making this shit up, man. We're not a professional. Another disclaimer. We are not professional medical people.
Yes,
We are
read the
not-
disclaimer before listening.
Yeah.
I know, but are you giving him a painting? Are you giving him a cooking a food? Like, just give me a thing.
It's a
She's
color
been
and
talking
an
so long, it
object.
took me forever to text it, but I've texted it. It is now texted.
Well, I'll just start because it came to my head immediately. This is what came to my head. A blue vase.
Yes.
Krista?
No. Yes.
Krista?
I don't know, because you're not giving me parameters. I saw blue too, though.
A color and an object. So Jason said blue vase.
I want a little bit of help on the object. I do.
How do you
hint
give
is-
help on that?
I don't know. I
Just
do these on
think it's
TikTok
like-
all the time, and I'm actually right a lot of the time. But they say I need
Animal-
a color and a shape, and so then I can clue in. But having it be
Okay,
an
I'll do
object,
another one.
I'm autistic. Do you know?
I'm
how
going
many
to do a
objects?
4-digit number.
Okay, so
How about
just,
a two-
just to wrap this,
How about a
What up?
2-digit number, right?
what
You
what
start off
Sarah
easy.
texted me was white flower.
Yeah,
And-
we didn't get it.
Flowers go into a vase.
There you go.
And
And if you
And
look at the bottom
clouds
of the
are
vase,
white
it's painted
that are
blue.
in the blue sky.
so I just sent Michael a 2-digit number. If you guys want to try again on live camera air time, Zoom.
I have the number.
Oop, I think, oh, there's Krista. You do?
I have a number.
57.
I got 37.
24. None of us have telepathy. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you next time on This Is
I almost
How
said
My Brain
23.
Works.
I almost said 23.
Yeah.
If you like this episode of This Is How My Brain Works, please like, subscribe, and share. If you'd like more info on the hosts, guests, and topics, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening.